Whenever you're ready, Mr. Lally.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Excuse me. Could you please state your name and spell your last name for me?
Richard D'Antano, D'_ANTUONO.
Sir, if I could turn your attention to the evening of January 28th into the early morning of January 29th, 2022. Do you recall those days?
Yeah.
If anyone were you meeting at C.F. McCarthy's on that?
I was meeting Ryan and Heather.
And just to be clear, when you say we, you mean yourself, Mr. Nagel, and Ms. Maxon?
Yeah, I drove us three.
Okay. So you drove all three of you in your F-150 pickup?
Yes.
And when you left the hillside, where was it that you were going?
To pick up Ryan's sister, Julie.
And if you know, how did that sort of come about as far as when did you become aware that that was a destination that you would be going to?
I would say towards the end of the night, I was told that we would be giving her a ride on our way home.
And so you leave the hillside, you get into your pickup, is that right?
Yep.
And Mr. Nagel and Ms. Maxon are with you?
Correct.
And where were they seated within the pickup when you were driving?
Ryan was in my passenger seat and Heather was in the back.
After making that turn onto Fairview, what, if any, vehicles did you observe at that time?
There was a vehicle parked in front of me, in front of the house.
And where was it in relation to the house that you parked the truck?
Right in front of the driveway.
Now, you mentioned that there was another vehicle that was parked in front of the house as well, is that correct?
Correct.
Where was that vehicle in relation to where you parked?
I would say maybe 10, 20 yards in front of me.
And if you know about how long a period of time we're talking about from the time that you pull up and park and the time that Julie comes out of the house?
Very quickly.
And when she comes out of the house, where is it that she comes to?
To my passenger window.
So she leaves and she goes back to the house, is that right?
Correct.
And when you pulled away from the curb, do you recall whether or not you had to sort of back up in order to pull around it or not?
I did not have to back up.
So you just sort of pull away from the curb, is that correct?
Correct.
So with respect to the photograph, Exhibit 71 that's up on the screen, do you recognize what's depicted in that photograph?
34 Fairview.
Is that the house of Julie's friend that you went to potentially go pick her up and eventually she went back to stop?
Correct.
And within this particular photograph, do you see the area where you had parked your truck during this time that you were talking about in your testimony?
I do.
And if you could, using that laser pointer, just direct the jury's attention to where in the photograph that is.
Right in front of the driveway, right there.
Now, also within this photograph, do you see the general area where you observed that SUV in front of you while you were out in front of us?
I would say, if I had to guess, I would say maybe half of the vehicle.
So it's probably a little bit further towards the left of this photograph, correct?
Correct.
And this is the same house that we were talking about in the last exhibit?
Correct.
So from this photograph, you see the area where you observed the SUV in relation to your truck that evening that you were parked out in front of the house?
I believe so, yeah.
And again, if you could, sir, using the laser pointer you have before you, direct the jury's attention to where about that.
Like right around that, I'd say.
Thanks.
You now know, as you testify here today, that you were outside the residence in back of a black SUV that was driven by Karen Reed, correct?
I do not know that based off my knowledge.
Not your personal knowledge, but you now know it's pretty much common knowledge, correct?
I guess so.
And possessing that information as you did on January 29th, were you interviewed by any state police investigator regarding this case on January 29th?
On that day?
Right.
No.
What about the next day or the rest of January or any day in February of 2022?
No.
In fact, isn't it true that no investigator from the state police or the district attorney's office interviewed you anytime during the entire year of 2022?
Correct.
So I was just going to ask you, the first time that you were approached by the state police regarding this case was September 2nd of 2023, correct?
Around that time, correct, yeah.
Right. As you're approaching the residence, you don't have a memory of coming face to face with a black SUV or any other vehicle, correct?
Correct.
There was nothing obstructing your view as you sat in the driver's seat of your Ford F-150 of the back of that black SUV, correct?
Correct.
You did not see, for instance, a Jeep with a snowplow on the front parked in between you.
I did not.
And in fact, you didn't see a Jeep with a snowplow parked anywhere on the property that you recall, correct?
To the best of my knowledge, no.
And you didn't see any other vehicles parked along the property line other than yourself and the black SUV, correct?
Correct.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name?
Heather Maxon, Maxon.
Ma'am, if I could direct your attention to January 28th into January 29th of 2022. Do you recall those dates?
I do.
And your boyfriend, Ryan, his last name is Nagel.
Correct.
And did he live in Canton at the time?
Yes.
And so Ricky's driving. Where is it that you and Ryan are within sort of the cab area of the truck?
Ryan was sitting in the passenger seat and I was in the back seat.
What, if any, other vehicles do you observe in the area at that time?
There was another vehicle in front of us on the same road coming from the opposite direction.
So as you're yielding to this vehicle taking a right, what, if any, observations did you make of people inside that other vehicle?
I've noticed a male and a female in the car.
With regard to from the time that Ricky yields to that car coming in the opposite direction and the time that you pull up to the house, was that SUV in front of Ricky's truck for the entire time?
Yes.
And as you go past the SUV, what, if anything, did you observe within the SUV?
I observed the female in the driver's seat.
And appear to be the same female that you observed as you were turning onto the road of Julie's friend's house?
Correct. The interior lighting was on, so that's why I had noticed as we were pulling away the female in the driver's seat.
As far as the male passenger that you saw as you were pulling onto the street, could you see him at that point?
I did not see any other person, just the female in the driver's seat.
Did you indicate that at some point you could see pretty clearly into the SUV as it turned, as y'all yielded way and it turned, it would be its right in front of you?
Correct.
And you could clearly see inside the passenger compartment there was a female driving, is that right?
Correct.
And there was a male sitting next to her.
Yes.
And how far behind that SUV would you estimate Ricky pulled the truck in terms of car lengths? 1 car length, 2 car lengths, right on the bumper?
Yeah, less than 1 car length.
Okay. You certainly did not see a full-sized Jeep Wrangler outfitted with a snowplow between the SUV and Ricky's truck.
I did not.
Sounds like a ridiculous question. You didn't see any other cars. There were no other cars between the two.
Correct.
You were interviewed by a Massachusetts state trooper on or about February 7th, 2022, correct?
Sounds about right, yes.
Do you remember which state trooper that was?
Not off the top of my head, no.
During that interview, you told and I'm just going to call him the trooper, since you don't remember his name, the trooper, Andy Butnick, that there were 2 other people in the car when you approached 34th here.
Say that again?
You told those 2 troopers that there were 2 other people in the car with you, Ricky D'Antono?
Yes, in my vehicle. Yes, sir.
Okay. You pulled up to Fairview and stopped relatively close to the driveway, as you've indicated to the jury, correct?
Correct, sir.
And your car was as much as 3 car lengths behind that SUV. Do you recall that?
When we arrived,
Yes.
I would say car length and a half at the time.
Okay.
Well, at the beginning, it was only a car length and a half, and then probably at the end, by the time we left, it was about 3 car lengths.
Okay, fair enough. So at the end, it was as much as 20 to 50 feet ahead of you.
Give or take, yes.
Okay, so 50 feet, obviously further than the length of this courtroom.
Correct.
All right. So at a time when you were in the truck, still stationary, that SUV had pulled ahead of you at least 3 car lengths, correct?
And by the end, yes.
Okay. Did any car pull in between Ricky's truck and the SUV when you were sitting behind the SUV?
No, sir.
You didn't see a Jeep
No, sir.
with a big old snow plow on the front of it?
No, sir, I did not.
That car was never between your car and the SUV, was it?
I never saw any other vehicle in between us.
All right, fair enough.
And when you came out to the truck at the end of the driveway, what, if any, other vehicles did you see in the area of the house on Fifth?
Well, before when I went outside, I did notice another vehicle before my brother pulled up.
And can you describe that vehicle for the jury? Sort of what did it look like? What kind of vehicle was it?
Yeah, it was a black SUV.
It's like that. I want to go back, if I can, to when you were inside the house, because you had testified that when you were inside, you looked out the window and you saw a different vehicle, correct?
I did, yes.
It was a black SUV.
Yes.
And you've testified that you saw that black, from within the house, you saw that black SUV move 2 times, correct?
More than 2.
So it was at first parked near the mailbox,
Yes.
and then you saw it move forward, right?
Yes.
And then you saw it move forward again to near the flagpole, correct?
Yes.
And was there a third time that you saw it moved?
I saw it pull up, stopped, pulled up again, stopped, pulled up again by the flagpole, stopped. That's all I saw.
All right.
Now, you get to your house, and what, if anything, happens sort of as you're coming into your driveway?
It looks like that. It had looked like Brian had gotten there first, Brian Higgins, and he was backing out, so I could pull my car in. That night, later in the night at the waterfall, he had a Jeep Wrangler vehicle that I believe is white, but I'm not 100%.
So he had arrived at your house before you, is that correct?
Yes.
And you said it looked like he had done something to the driveway?
He may have skimmed. He had a plow on his truck, and I think he may have plowed the driveway and then pulled out, and then we pulled in.
With your husband, Matt.
Yes, correct.
I want to ask a question about Mr. Higgins.
Mhm.
You testified on Friday that you saw his vehicle when you got to the scene, correct?
Yes.
And you said that it was pulled up a little bit in front of the mailbox, correct?
Yes.
And where's the mailbox? If you can point to it with the laser pointer. Okay, so you're pointing to an area just in front of a car that's in the driveway, correct?
Yes.
And you indicated that Jeep was just a little bit in front of the mailbox, meaning about there, correct?
Yes.
And the rear end of that Jeep would be butting up against the driveway,
Yes.
or at least the line of the driveway, correct?
Yes.
That's quite a bit of detail about where that Jeep was. Would you agree?
No, because I drove down the street and I took a left into the driveway and there was a Jeep there.
What you said?
I 100% said it was straight out the front door.
Okay, next question, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. And during the course of that conversation, you never once, Ms. McCabe, not once, mentioned a several-ton Jeep with a snowplow attached to it, did you?
I'm not sure if I did or not.
Let's take another look at the report. Would that refresh your recollection to see the report?
Objection.
Do you think that will help you?
I'll take a look at it.
Okay.
May I?
Yes.
Looks like a report from Trooper Proctor of your interview, correct?
Correct.
That interview was taken on January 29th, correct?
Correct.
That interview was taken just a few hours, not days or weeks, hours after the events in question, correct?
Correct.
And you were asked what you saw, what you observed in front of 34 Fairview on that morning, correct? I'm sorry, the night before, correct?
He asked specific questions about Miss Reed's vehicle.
Okay. And when you said where you remember Miss Reed's vehicle being, you placed it in the exact spot where you're now saying there was a Jeep with a snowplow on it, correct?
Incorrect. I never placed Miss Reed's car in the spot where Mr. Higgins' vehicle was.
So as Trooper Proctor was taking notes about what you were saying, He just got it wrong.
You'd have to ask Trooper Proctor.
I will. Were you ever asked by anybody to mention a Jeep being behind Ms. Reed's SUV in this trial?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Were you ever asked by anybody to make sure you mention a Jeep being parked behind Ms. Reed's SUV in this trial?
Not that I recall, no.